Welcome to my channel people. Author link will be on description. When we left the village, Shisui began explaining the details of the mission. According to the 5th Hokage, trackers that we sent to keep an eye on them found out that the 7 clans are still gathered together, similar to when they left, and they are heading west. The higher-ups believe that their destination is the Land of Rain, the Land of Rain. Why would they go there? Was their helper a member of the village hidden in the rain? Asked Itachi. No, I don't think the village hidden in the rain will attempt to provoke Konoha in this way when they just had a civil war and the previous chief Hanzo died. As for them accepting these clans to strengthen themselves, this possibility was also rejected because of the hatred they have for Konoha because of the Third Great Ninja War making their land a battleground, said Shisui with a sigh. Itachi frowned at the mention of war but asked an important question, then how are those clans so sure nothing will happen to them? That's what we are here to find out, replied Shisui seriously. I wonder how Nagato is reacting to Obito inviting people from Konoha. I thought flashback to 5 days ago after Toby left Konoha, he sent a signal to Pain to contact him, and so in a hidden location on the Land of Rain, the leader of the Akatsuki, Pain used his astral projection jutsu to have a private discussion with Toby about his recent actions. This jutsu allows the members of the Akatsuki to send out thought waves, converted into chakra. These thought waves are then picked up by Pain, acting as a kind of control tower. This technique amplifies the thought waves and broadcasts them to a specific location through illusionary bodies. While Pain is relaying the members' thoughts, they can have conversations and use varying techniques. If someone were to look inside this hidden room, they would be scared at the 2 shadowy figures facing each other. One of them that appeared to have light purple eyes with black circles inside, or as very few people in this world knew their true name, Rinnegan, was questioning another figure wearing a mask with a single Sharingan shining from it. Toby, why are you using the emergency signal to contact me? Asked Pain in a cold, distorted voice. This is currently Nagato with his god complex in full effect from all the BS Jiraiya showered him about being the chosen child. Toby ignored his tone and answered, I was forced to act quickly because of some changes in the situation. Well, first let me explain to you what happened recently in Konoha. And so he began explaining everything that happened, from the new Hokage to the fall of Danzo to the 7 clans he tricked to desert Konoha. Pain's expression kept flickering, especially when he heard how weakened Konoha was currently. Of course those clans are merely tools in the end and will be used as cannon fodder to destroy Konoha, and get the 9 tails to further our plans before I get rid of them. After all, what better way to destroy Konoha than with its own people? Pain's eyes ignited with hatred. Indeed, the 9 tails is important for our plans. You acted well. Do you need the assistance of the Akatsuki? In this timeline, Nagato Pain was still young and can deal with the pressure from using the Rinnegan, so if he truly participates, the results would be scary. Toby thought about it for a moment and said, I do, but if we blatantly attack Konoha now, even when we win, it will only make us the target of all the other villages, which will put a huge pressure on us, so we either attack all the villages together and take them by surprise, starting a full-blown out war, or we use people from Konoha itself to attack it and at best use 2 of our members to act as hired mercenaries like usual. Unknown to Toby, Nagato thought about it and, trusting in his power and fate, was about to choose the first option, but a blue-haired woman that was sitting beside his real body stopped him from acting recklessly. Nagato, don't be rash. I still don't trust this man. We better be careful, since I feel that his hatred for Konoha is driving his actions more than helping achieve the goal of the organization. Since we have the option of taking down Konoha and take the 9 tails without endangering the organization, take it. She was Conan. Nagato hesitated a little before he nodded at her. Okay. Then his attention returned to the body of Pain and the same cold voice sounded again. We will go with the second option. I will order Kakuzu and Kisame to accompany you along with Orochimaru, and this should be enough to deal with the weakened Konoha along with the minions you gathered. Good. I asked the clans to build a temporary base on the Land of Rain near the border with the Land of Fire, make some preparations for their arrival, and ask Orochimaru and the other 2 to prepare for the upcoming fight before I meet up with them and try to get the other hidden villages involved, said Toby with his eyes shining in a crimson light for the slaughter he's about to cause. Just wait. You will be erased soon, thought Toby as his hatred burned stronger and stronger. Back to the present time, it didn't take long before we quickly started catching up to the 7 clans and we started finding more and more traces of their path. It's impossible to hide your traces when you are traveling in such a huge group, especially when not all of your members are ninjas. After 4 hours of traveling, I finally caught the scent of a huge number of people ahead of us, so I signaled for Itachi and Shisui to stop. I smelled the air a little bit before I focused on my hearing and said, I can sense a huge gathering of people around 3 kilometers from us and few stationary human smells scattered in a huge range around them, probably sentries. The sun is almost setting, so they are probably going to camp here before they go on with their journey. Good job. We should be more careful from here on out to not be detected, Shisui said as both he and Itachi activated their Sharingans to help them detect people just in case I miss something. As for me, I did something else which surprised them. I put my ear on the ground and closed my eyes. My face was focused like never before, feeling for any movements under the ground. As I guessed, Zetsu is keeping an eye on them and he's moving all over the place with his clones. TCH, this mission is already hard, and now it's becoming even harder to finish it without exposing Shisui's ability. What are you doing? Asked Itachi curiously. Someone is moving under the ground and he's observing the camp. We need to be extra careful, I said seriously. Okay. They both narrowed their eyes at this unknown enemy and nodded. A hard mission is turning out to be an impossible mission. Hearing that there's an unknown enemy moving under the ground observing the camp put both Itachi and Shisui on edge, because they thought that Iwa, the village hidden in stone, is trying to make a move against Konoha by establishing contact with these rebellious clans. As for what reason, the answer is simple. War. The reason they came to this conclusion is that ninja from Iwa are famous for their mastery of earth-related jutsu. This is what they guessed this person is using to move under the ground in such a skillful way. However, I felt nervous for a different reason. Let hope that only Zetsu is around. If other Akatsuki members are around too, this mission will be impossible, I thought as I heard Shisui say with a calm expression on his face. We need to make a plan for both engaging and retreating. Shisui's really talented. He already regained his calm as the leader to not make us feel even more nervous. Still, Fugaku really miscalculated our power sending us on this mission. Was he really overestimating my strength? Or was it that they suspect that some of the spies in Konoha are too high level and will report any huge deployments? TCH, how annoying, we need to purge them soon, I thought as I saw Shisui take out a map and a pen and gave them to me while saying, Bakurio, please mark the locations of the stationary sentries you can sense and the route of the ones on the ground on the map. I took the map and the pen from his hands before I focused on my senses as much as I could, to the point I felt I was almost merging with nature. What a great feeling, I thought as I started marking the location of the camp and the sentries one by one before I put my ear on the ground again to try to detect Zetsu's traveling route, but it was pointless because he and his clones kept changing their position randomly. I gave Shisui the map without the Zetsu's route in it and said, the guy underground is probably a very skilled spy. He changes his and his clones' route constantly and only stops in one location for a few seconds before he changes again. I couldn't find any pattern to his actions. Both Itachi and Shisui sighed at this before Itachi said, that guy is troublesome. As for those clans, I've seen this formation of sentries before when I went to war as a kid with my father. This is a formation used when expecting an enemy attack and you are ready to use any number of sacrifices. You too see how the sentries are spaced from each, yet they are all in triangular formations, so each person is at least on the line of sight of 2 others. Shisui and I nodded, so he continued this time with disgust, but this formation is usually never used unless under extreme circumstances, because different from other formations, at the tip of each triangle, they put the weakest ninja as cannon fodder, with their only job is to send a warning before they die, or at least let their deaths be seen by the 2 also weak ninja behind them, and it goes on like this. This is so the strong ninja never gets assassinated and they could mount a counterattack. This formation is called the Triangle of Death. A solemn atmosphere fell on us and we were reminded again how cruel the ninja world can be. We also understood that these clans distrusted Konoha so much to the point they were preparing for war anytime. At first, I thought that if the Uchiha clan simply left the village, at least Konoha won't interfere and our only problem will be being targeted by other villages. Now, however, I am sure they would have hunted us down the moment we set foot out of the village. I thought in anger. Shisui wasn't inclined on using force on these weak ninjas that probably were forced into this by their clan elders, so he picked the best move. Infiltrating them while they are on guard like this will only cause a tragedy and we will be quickly surrounded. So I think the best moment to infiltrate is when they are on the move. Let's observe the changes and try to find any flaws we can use. Okay. We both nodded before we started observing the behavior of the sentries, but Itachi and Shisui always retreat when they feel they are going to be sensed. As for me, I heard some conversations. Why are they sending us here? I am merely a genin. A girl with slumped shoulders and a sad face that just finished her watch shift said to her friend. At least we are genin. Think about those academy students being sacrificed blatantly like this while saying it's for the sake of the village and clans. I never thought our clans were so disgusting. I wish I wasn't born here, said the friend to this girl with a disappointed look on his face. Do you think the village will really attack us? Asked the girl, worried about their safety, but the other kid simply shook his head. No. What I am worried about is us going to another country, and all they are worried about is our village attacking us. Conversations like this were happening all around the camp, not just from the kids but from their parents too. After all, no one in their right mind would be happy at their kids being sacrificed like this, and against who? Against the village they grew up in. Unfortunately, no matter how much people complained, nothing changed because the people in power were drowned in their own delusion that they were doing this for a good reason. A few hours later, the sun started rising from the horizon, bringing with it a new day to the kids of this camp that passed the night under the fear of death, an experience they will never forget, and some will even quit being a ninja because of it. It didn't take long before everyone packed their tents and on their journey, they marched again, but what was surprising is that even while moving they still kept that same formation, bringing a frown to our faces until we started noticing something, a flaw. Such a flaw would never have happened if this was a war, but because those clans were in a rush to leave, today it appeared, a simple flaw called experience. To keep a battle formation working while moving is one of the hardest things and requires a lot of training and experience, something these genins and academy students and at best some chunins never had. And it showed because different from when they were stationary, now their positioning wasn't perfect and it created some blind spots. These blind spots were thanks to the land of fire being a place filled with forests, but even though this was a flaw, it wasn't easy to use or take advantage of, because they will quickly readjust their formation, but that's only when you don't have the Sharingan, and so a new plan quickly took form under the cooperation of these three monsters, and before long they took action to execute it. After seeing the only possible flaw in the formation, we started coming up with different plans, but before that, we needed to understand what each of us was better at, so Shisui went first by saying, I am very good at shuriken jutsu, ninjutsu and genjutsu, but my specialty is close combat while using the body flicker jutsu. Of course this is only true when his Mangekyo Sharingan isn't considered. Next Itachi said, I am good at taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu and specialize in shuriken jutsu. I went last and said, I am good at ninjutsu, genjutsu, and shuriken jutsu, but my specialty is stealth and taijutsu. Indeed, with my enhanced senses and reaction speed, I am built perfectly for these two, especially stealth when we add in the map function from the system. Now that we know each other's main strengths, do you have any ideas on how to do this without leaving any traces or evidence of our action? Asked Shisui. Itachi shook his head. It's hard enough to infiltrate them and it's even harder to do it without leaving a trace, but even if we can do this, we might still be found out by the spy underground. I think we should sacrifice one of the conditions to do it safely. Shisui nodded at him, but I shook my head. Shisui, how long does it take for your ability to take effect when you make eye contact with someone? Shisui thought about it before he responded because he never tested the lower activation limit of Koto Amatsukami, because that's just asking to be blind. The least duration I had was when I faced that guy Mukai. And I had eye contact with him for literally an instant and it worked fine. I frowned a little, making them feel concerned that enemies might be near, but I was only thinking that what I came up with might be risky, but I still decided to go with it in the end. I have a plan, a very risky plan, but it's the only thing I can think about. Shisui smiled and said, we are ninja, facing risks is just part of our lives, please tell us what you came up with. Itachi too looked attentive at this, wanting to hear the plan. Yay STFU, you are the last person I want to hear that from. I thought before I started explaining my plan to them. My plan is this. The clans were moving through the forest like a huge caravan, After all, not everyone was a ninja and can travel a long distance on foot. The elders of each clan were enjoying their ride while looking out of the windows from time to time, unbothered by the sacrifices they were willing to make for their glorious mission. Two old people, in particular, were having a talk inside their luxurious horse-drawn carriage. "Do you think the masked man will keep his words and bring strong allies to help us deal with the Uchiha?" asked Koharu. "He already went this far to deal with them. I don't think he's joking around." "Don't worry, we will find out when we reach the land of rain," responded Homura while enjoying some tea and looking at the scenery outside. These two didn't notice two things. First, they didn't notice how heartless they are for sacrificing their people while they are enjoying tea and not feeling any regret, and the second thing was the two normal-looking birds hovering high in the air and observing their caravan. Of course, these two birds are the unique Uchiha summons, the dark crows, and currently, they were transformed to look like normal birds to not arouse suspicion. These two crows belong to Itachi and Shisui and were summoned by them to keep a better eye on the situation so that each of them can fulfill his own purpose of the plan. As for their bodies, they were both outside the range of the formation, not needed to take action for now. But this time I wasn't with them, and Itachi is wearing an earring in his left ear and seemed to be muttering something, and if someone could see the ground around them they would find many shining objects all around them. Meanwhile, I was doing my best to avoid people's eyesight and infiltrate the formation, which got harder the deeper I got, because when you get closer to the center of the formation, which is the moving caravan, the level of ninja will keep on rising, from academy student to genin to chunin and in the end even some jonin. And this is without considering the lurking zetsu, so I had to push my focus beyond its limits and use it with my map at the same time to detect people, and then use even more focus on my stealth skill to stop any of my chakra from leaking outside my body and not cause any sound or disturbance in the area around me. During all this I had to follow Itachi's instructions and plant objects in specific locations. This was his job, to guide me. After I got closer to the area protected by the chunin, I finally made a mistake. I didn't calculate the position of the sun correctly, so one of the chunin happened to see a small part of my shadow, which I quickly noticed and hid. It all happened in an instant and he quickly got vigilant and raised his head to confirm something and noticed that a bird was flying past their camp and it left a shadow on the ground, which caused the chunin to lower his guard again while thinking, "Thank God it's just a bird," he thought. While I thought differently. "Good job, Shisui." Indeed, that bird was Shisui's summon. His job currently was to help me cover for any flaw I show, and he did it perfectly. After this, I became more careful and I heard Itachi say, "I calculated to the best of my ability, now all that's left is to see if our luck is good. Retreat quickly so that Shisui can focus on his job." And just like that, I planted the final small object on the side of the road where the caravans will pass before I started retreating with the help of both Shisui and Itachi. The moment I arrived beside them I directly collapsed down, exhausted not physically but mentally, and Itachi too was the same, but we still have to fulfill another part of the plan. Slowly the caravan moved along the path where we planted the objects, and Shisui unsummoned his crow and waited for the right time as his eyes turned into his Mangekyo Sharingan. The right time soon came as the carriage containing both Koharu and Homura was about to pass to the left of the last object I planted while they were simply having a conversation together, but soon something changed. The moment they reached that point, from up in the sky a bird dived down, coincidentally aiming at a snake in the ground just beside the object I planted. Koharu and Homura couldn't help but look at this scene in surprise, but it was then that Homura inadvertently looked at a small shining object inside the mouth of the snake that was just grabbed by the bird. A mirror that wasn't reflecting the bright light of the sun, but a bloody crimson light instead. And how many ninjas do you think each of the hidden villages has? Here's a tip. During the alliance against Madara, the 5 hidden villages had a collective of 80,000 forces. However, they were made by a combination of ninjas and samurais. Without anyone knowing, Homura slowly fell under the effect of Shisui's Koto Amatsukami, in which Shisui now experienced with people instructing their bodies to follow certain commands if they fall under a genjutsu. He quickly took complete control of Homura's body and did not allow him to have any unwanted reactions. As for how we will get the information from him, we will simply leave a communication device for him to retrieve. Koharu watched as the bird caught the snake and flew away with a worried look, feeling it was a bad omen for such a scene to appear beside them. What she didn't realize however is that it was indeed a bad omen and Homura beside her was no longer the same. Meanwhile outside the range of the sentries, Itachi sat on the ground and said with a tired but excited face, "Finally we did it." Shisui nodded in agreement. As for me, I was too tired to even respond. "Yes, I still can't believe we actually did it," said Shisui as his eyes turned back to normal. Only a trail of blood leaking from his right eye indicated what just happened. Indeed, our crazy plan was simple. We used the transformation jutsu on stones we found on the ground to transform them into mirrors, and my task was to plant them on the places where Itachi instructs me. He used his transformed summon to observe the landscape for this, while Shisui used his summon to help cover any mistakes I make, like the shadow incident. All this was for one purpose, and it was to reflect Shisui's eyesight at the right moment to make eye contact with either Kaharu or Homura. For this to succeed, Itachi had to be very precise with the placement of each mirror and calculate everything from the reflected eyesight, the place where the caravan's going to pass, and how to make the mirrors hard to detect by making them the right size and put them in places where they won't reflect the sunlight, etc. This required great intelligence and skill, something Itachi possessed in abundance as he applied the way he throws his shurikens and how he makes them ricochet from one another to hit a target from impossible angles for this. Then I made a shadow clone and instructed him to turn into a snake and wait beside the last mirror while Itachi, after we finished planting the mirror, waited with his bird for the right time to attack the snake I left and cause a disturbance that would draw the attention of those two mummies. This was our plan, where the margin for error was so thin it was even thinner than Sakura's chest. Now all that's left is to plant the communication device, so we simply checked the map of the land of fire and calculated where they will pass by and have some rest, because it's impossible for them to only stop at night. At least that's what we thought, but apparently, those elders were so paranoid, especially when they saw the bird catching the snake incident, causing them to march the whole day and only stopped at night. Because of this, we had to follow them the whole day, and we kept getting closer and closer to the land of rain, but finally, when we arrived at around a day's distance from the land of rain, we saw a river, and Shisui quickly manipulated Homura to instruct people to camp near it as we quickly planted the device for him somewhere there before they arrived. After we confirmed that he received the device, we finally heaved a sigh of relief, as now our mission was officially over and we only had to spread some transmission seals for the device to keep working even from a long distance. At this moment, Itachi, who felt a huge weight in his heart, finally spoke. "Do you guys think that there's really someone behind them and they intend to attack the village?" Shisui knew the answer, but he didn't want to worry his friend even more, so I said, "What if that's the case?" Itachi looked troubled and said, "I don't know. There are many innocent people inside those clans that were forced to follow their elders. If a war breaks out, they will only die pointlessly." Shisui looked sad, remembering how they were willing to use the formation of death, indicating just how this situation is going to end. "Itachi, stop bitching around as if you are the only one who has emotions and doesn't like war," I said as I started getting annoyed with this kid. "I don't then," Itachi tried to retort in anger before I cut him off. "Power," I said. "What do you mean?" Itachi said. "That's your answer. Grow stronger. Strong to the point that no one will dare to start a war for fear that you will get involved. That's how you create peace," I said seriously, causing both his eyes and the silent Shisui's eyes to light up, and I continued. "As for how you keep the peace, you will have to teach it for the next generations to carry your will correctly, but even then it won't be enough. Konoha is the best example," I said as I shook my head at the two kids in front of me. "Hashirama preached for the will of fire, and he strove his whole life to bring peace to this world by sending good intentions to other villages. Yet the moment he died, those same villages used his good intentions, mainly the tailed beasts, as tools for war. The Uzumaki clan that his wife belonged to that wanted to live peacefully were betrayed and killed, and even his body wasn't spared and was used for evil experiments. This is your future if you continue with the same mindset," I said as I looked at them with a cold gaze that extinguished the light that started blooming in their eyes. They both looked broken at the reality they couldn't escape, and I couldn't help but laugh. "Ha ha ha, why are you two looking like this?" Itachi grabbed me by the collar in anger and was about to punch me, but Shisui held him back and shook his head at him, and Itachi slowly calmed down a little. "I am sorry, but please don't laugh at my dream," Itachi said. "I am not laughing at your dream, I am laughing at your stupidness," I said, and Itachi's anger started rising again, but I continued. You need to understand that this is humanity. Greed, envy, pride, hatred and many other things will never allow us to truly live in peace, but what you can do is achieve peace in your lifetime the way Hashirama did. I smiled at him. As for what comes after you, that's for the next generations to worry about, you idiotic kid, I said as I used my index and middle finger and poked his forehead the same way he does to Sasuke. Both Itachi's and Shisui's eyes widened at my words and they felt like they were enlightened and only woke up when I poked his forehead, making him blush in embarrassment for being treated like this by another kid, but the rising thoughts in his heart quickly drowned all his other feelings and Shisui felt the same way. Grow stronger and bring peace to the world in our lifetime. As for whether it continues after our death, that's up to who comes next. As I was casting my talk no jutsu on Shisui and Itachi, the now controlled Homura finally went back to his own personal tent to rest, or at least this is what the rest of the elders thought. The reality was different because the moment he was alone we received a signal on our communication device indicating that the final part of our mission is finally about to be completed. As Itachi and Shisui regained their calm from my previous speech, Shisui's eyes transformed into his Mangekyo Sharingan and at the same Homura started casting a special seal around him in the shape of a circle. The purpose of this seal is to isolate any sound from leaving the circular seal. This was a very simple sound isolation seal that even someone like Homura could use. After it was done, Homura's distorted voice finally started coming out of the earring I was holding in my hand under Shisui's control, explaining to us everything that happened 5 days ago that caused this series of events. 5 days ago, after Danzo was kidnapped by the masked man from Konoha's torture and interrogation department, that same masked man visited me and Kaharu when we were having a conversation on how to deal with the situation of having an unworthy person as a Hokage and us losing our powers. The two Uchiha dreamers frowned at the comment of Fugaku being an unworthy Hokage, but they didn't say anything for now and only felt disappointed in themselves for respecting such people before. The masked man introduced himself as Tobi, and he said that the Uchiha used another ability from their eyes we don't know, like we didn't know Izanagi or Fugaku's Mangekyo Sharingan's ability. That ability was used on Hiruzen to trick him to believe that his grand student, the fourth Hokage, was still alive, which should be impossible considering that he summoned the forbidden Death Reaper to seal the 9 tails inside his son, so it should have been impossible for his soul to exist inside the Jinchuriki's seal space or any other place other than the Death Reaper. At this point, Itachi and Shisui shot me a weird look that said, "Just how did you do it?" which I simply shrugged at and continued listening since the juicy part is just starting. Frustrated at their trickery, we decided to follow Toba's request and gather the forces that are willing to help us free Konoha from such a Hokage and clan that uses underhanded tricks. Frustration kept building on Shisui's and Itachi's hearts, and they kept remembering my previous teachings, and without them realizing, their hearts slowly kept changing, something I clearly noticed from how their gazes turned a little sharper and colder. However, whether this change was for better or for worse, that's something for the future to reveal. Now we are going to make a camp on the land of rain, near the border with the land of fire, and wait for the right time to attack, which will be when Tobi is done with his preparations and gather enough allies. As for our supporters left in Konoha, they are. There was only silence between the three listeners when knowing that war was approaching very soon. A worst-case scenario for the weakened Konoha and its people. Think about it, what will happen if these 7 clans attack Konoha along with a masked man which can contend with the strongest cages, Orochimaru and Danzo, which are at cage level and can deal with people like Hiruzen one-on-one, and then there's Kakuzu and Kisame. One can survive a battle with the current strongest cage in history Hashirama, and the other can deal with the 8 tails Jinchuriki on his own, and not to mention the involvement of other powers. As for Konoha, it has Fugaku and Hiruzen at cage level and that's all. Other than them there's only Hiashi and Kakashi at elite Jonin level. As for the rest, they are merely Jonin. Even if Jiraiya and Tsunade were summoned back, they won't be enough, with 2 of them having not fought for a long time. They were both rusty, especially Tsunade, who was drowning herself daily in alcohol and gambling to forget her misery. And Shisui wasn't good either. With him only having the Mangekyo Sharingan and not the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, At most, he can use his game-changer Kotoamatsukami 3 more times before he goes blind, and he can't manipulate multiple targets at once since even one person at a time puts a huge burden on his eyes, and manipulating more will than on at the same time will cause him to go blind faster, so him using Susanoo is a better option, and same for Fugaku unless they have Hashirama cells implanted in them like Obito. I noted this in my mind as I said to Shisui and Itachi that we're still dazed by the news of the upcoming war. Let go, we need to report this information and think of how to deal with this mess. They broke out of their daze with worried looks on their faces as Shisui said, "You are right, let hurry back, the sooner we inform them the better." And so just like this, our difficult mission was over. Unfortunately, we felt no happiness or accomplishment after we discovered the horrible news and confirmed Konoha's worst nightmare. Our way back didn't take us too long because we didn't want to waste any time as we traveled at our top speed and only stopped from time to time to plant some transmission seals. And so by the dawn of the next day, we were already in front of a huge familiar gate, the entrance to Konoha. No one questioned us since we didn't go on an official mission in the first place, so we directly headed in the direction of the village center, the location of the new Uchiha compound, and directly entered the clan head's house to report the mission to Fugaku. Surprisingly, Fugaku was awake, and seeing the flustered looks on our faces he started having a bad feeling on his heart, a feeling that was quickly confirmed when Shisui quickly followed the normal ninja protocol without any greeting, which was to kneel on one leg, and hurriedly started reporting the mission, and Itachi was the same even though it was his father, but right now he was working. As for me, I wasn't going to kneel for any protocol or whatever and only watched Fugaku's reaction hearing the report about the formation of death, our plan, the spies left behind, and finally the information about the incoming war. The moment Shisui finished his report, Fugaku quickly got to his feet and said, "Thanks, you three did unbelievably well, especially not allowing Shisui's ability to be discovered, allowing us to still have it as a trump card. Please keep this information as top secret. I need to quickly gather everyone trustworthy and apprehend the spies left in the village." Fugaku quickly body flickered away while creating some clones to inform specific people to meet secretly. Soon the village that was stuck in its old ways was going to experience another inevitable change, but was it the only village changing? While Konoha was sending me, Shisui, and Itachi on that suicide mission to confirm the true intentions of the deserting 7 clans, Obito aka Tobi was stirring many currents throughout the ninja world. After his communication with Pain ended, the first thing he did was teleport to the land of water to meet someone that's going to join in the attack against Konoha, and that person was Kisame Hoshigaki. Different from the other members of the Akatsuki, Kisame was recruited personally by Tobi after he killed his previous master, who is a member of the 7 ninja swordsmen and the previous owner of his famous living weapon Samahata. His name was Fuguki Sukazan. After Kisame killed him, he was planning on becoming a missing nin of the Hidden Mist village, but before he could leave, he was intercepted by 2 people, the 4th Mizukage Yagura Karataki and Obito, who introduced himself as Madara Uchiha. That day he learned that Madara was controlling the Mizukage, which was the Jinchuriki of the 3 tails, through the famous Uchiha Genjutsu, and decided to follow this legendary ninja. Thus he got recruited into the Akatsuki and became Toba's loyal follower. Now, these 2 people were meeting inside the cage tower of the Hidden Mist village as if they own the place and talking about the upcoming war. "Madara, what did you come to see me for? You know I am busy managing the Hidden Mist village as you instructed, right?" asked Kisame with his wicked smile showing his sharp shark-like teeth. "By manage, you mean ruining it and enjoying your dark fantasies." "Well, I don't care anyways," said Obito in a dark cold voice mimicking Madara's. The Hidden Mist village used to raise its ninja using cruel ways, unlike the other villages, famously known for pitting their academy graduates against each other in death matches as a final exam, with the exceptionally skilled students named prime candidates for the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, and this tradition was only discontinued after Zabuza Momoshi, not yet a student himself, killed over 100 academy students, gaining with it the nickname, Demon of the Hidden Mist. But even though the situation after this incident became better, the 4th Mizukage soon became under Obito's control, who let Kisame do whatever he wants with Kiri, and the result was far from ideal. After all, during this reign, the village hidden in the mist became famously known as the Village of the Bloody Mist. "Ha ha ha, I'm just having some fun while doing my job. Anyway, do you need something from me?" Kisame laughed before he asked seriously since he was curious at the sudden visit. Yes, here's the situation. Obito quickly told him what happened in Konoha before he followed up with his instruction. I want you to meet with Orochimaru and Kakuzu and travel to the village hidden in the clouds Kumo, the village hidden in the stone Iwa, and the village hidden in the sand Suna, to inform them about the current situation of Konoha and a possible alliance to get rid of them once and for all since they are in a weak state. You seem very eager to take your revenge, said Kisame with a grin. Don't talk too much, was the cold response he got from Obito, and he followed saying, this isn't just for revenge. With this, we can get our hands on the Nine Tails and possibly take advantage of the situation to weaken the other villages and get the tailed beasts in their possessions too, shortening the time for my plan. I understand. Please take me near Kakuzu, said Kisame, and Obito complied as they both disappeared from the Hokage Tower as if they never existed, leaving Yagura sitting there blankly doing some paperwork. During the 5 days I was hospitalized, and while Konoha was trying to fix the damage from the battle with Danzo and its unstable situation with new council members, Kisame quickly met up with Kakuzu, which was doing some mission in the Land of Fire. Because of his love for money, Kakuzu was the most active Akatsuki member, yet no one ever knew his abilities because he never left any witnesses behind. When he heard that a war was about to happen, he simply looked at it as having more people to kill, which equals more money to him, so he readily accepted the mission and quickly joined Kisame to meet Orochimaru. They traveled to the north of the Land of Fire, passing its borders and entering the Land of Sound, the place where Orochimaru built one of his bases when he escaped from Konoha and was attempting to create a new hidden village. However, the other Akatsuki members only knows about the village and not the base where he does his weird experiments to make his huge obsession with immortality a reality. As they met Orochimaru, he gave them his typical hair-raising look with his snake eyes, but they weren't bothered by it. After all, one was a cold humanoid made mainly from hair and the other looked like a mixture between a shark and a human. Not one of them was normal. What brought you here, my fellow Akatsuki members? Said Orochimaru with a smile. We came to inform you that the Akatsuki is planning to attack Konoha, and the leader ordered for you to help since you know it better than most as the previous student of the third Hokage, said Kakuzu, coldly going straight to the point. Orochimaru was excited by the news, but he decided to ask first, what caused this sudden decision? Kakuzu looked at Kisame, who reluctantly explained to him Konoha's current situation quickly. Amazing, great, ha. Orochimaru laughed hysterically and followed saying with a cruel smile, those old bastards finally got what they deserve. I am definitely going to give my dear village and teacher a visit and send them to their death personally. Orochimaru couldn't wait to get his hands on Hashirama's body along with many Uchiha and Hyuga for his experiments, but most importantly he wanted Itachi Uchiha. Kakuzu and Kisame looked coldly at this weirdo before they went with him to his still-in-the-making hidden village to wait for him to make his preparations before they visit the other hidden villages. As they were waiting, Orochimaru entered his base through a hidden passage and thought, with his eyes shining with a dangerous light, filled with a need to possess. Who would have thought? That old bastard Danzo hid this amazing Izanagi from me. It's good he's still alive. I will make sure I get all the research from his experiments before he started thinking about something else. But something doesn't feel right. Who was the man that helped Danzo escape from the village unscathed? Why did I never hear about a member with teleporting ability? Orochimaru had a bad feeling about this member that was hiding in the shadows of this already so secretive organization, but he thought he will find out in the future. He arrived inside a training ground where he was training a few promising people he collected from around the world and started instructing them on what to do during his absence before he went deeper into the base to make sure that his research won't be discovered if it was raided. I guess Kisame is bad at playing Sims. As the Akatsuki were stirring trouble for Konoha by informing the other hidden villages about the current situation and the upcoming war. In Konoha, the situation was drastically evolving for the worst. When the Uchiha trio returned from their top-secret mission and reported their findings of the clan's intentions and the identity of the spies left behind in the village, Fugaku quickly notified the trustworthy clans and Anbu members and quickly mobilized all of Konoha's forces to apprehend the spies. Many fights and skirmishes happened everywhere, but the casualties were surprisingly low. That's until some people got involved, and if you don't look at the Uchiha clan's losses. Apparently, those spies weren't willing to fight other clan members to the death, and most of the time they were apprehended after a small-scale battle. However, the situation was different for the Uchiha, especially those that worked on the Uchiha police force and tried to protect the civilians during the ongoing chaos. Those spies would viciously attack the Uchiha members even if they didn't provoke them and only did their jobs protecting the civilians, which caused many casualties among the police force ranks, which in turn enraged the Uchiha clan and they started massacring those spies even if they surrendered, resulting in a bloody situation. Two kids looked at the several losses all around the village with blank eyes before those eyes turned crimson and they started dealing with anyone that was attacking the police force viciously and effectively, to the point that the situation started calming down after their involvement. They were Itachi and Shisui Uchiha. You might think about how the situation ended up like this. After all, Fugaku should have planned this perfectly to not alarm those clans before they capture them, and the answer is simple. Fugaku trusted in Shisui's ability, and because Homura was one of the leaders of this rebellion, Fugaku believed that the list of spies that he received was complete. So pressured by the urgent situation, he gathered all the clans and ninja that weren't part of that list and told them about his intentions to apprehend the spies as quickly as possible. However, what he didn't expect, nor did Homura and Kaharu, was that more people will join their cause after some of the spies invited their closest friends, and one of them happened to be the clan head of the Tatami clan, which was a small clan and also one of the bodyguards of the previous Hokage. Just like that, before the people in the meeting took action, those spies were quickly informed and chaos quickly descended on Konoha, resulting in the current bloody situation. When this situation started, I wasn't sitting still, rather I brought Naruto, that was now living with me, to visit Makoto and Sasuke. And the moment she opened the door with Sasuke following behind her, I saw that she had a worried look that quickly turned relieved when she saw us and said as she hugged both me and Naruto, "Thank God you two are okay. I was just about to visit you and see how you are doing." Naruto enjoyed the warmth from her hug while I said with a warm smile, "We are fine, but the situation is really bad and I have a bad feeling, so I wanted to invite you and Sasuke to my house just in case someone tries to attack you and use you to threaten Fugaku-san." Makoto's opened her eyes in shock at this possibility and quickly agreed to follow me to my house just in case. As we walked inside my house, Makoto finally heaved a sigh of relief and said, "We should be fine now." But I thought otherwise, because just at this moment I heard a few people land on top of Makoto's house and they seemed to be looking for something before they started walking in our direction. TCH, a sensor. I thought as I started thinking quickly before I looked at Makoto, remembering she used to be a Jonin, so I signaled for her with my finger that someone was coming and she quickly understood my meaning along with the observant Sasuke, leaving only the clueless Naruto in the dark, who was still probably thinking about Makoto's hug. Meanwhile, Makoto frowned before she looked at the kids reluctantly, and soon her eyes shone with resolve as she smiled warmly and said to me, "Bakurio-kun, make sure to take care of Sasuke and Naruto, okay?" "Mom, what are you talking about?" asked Sasuke worriedly. "Sasuke, I love you. Please tell Itachi that I love him too no matter what." She smiled warmly and gave me one last look, almost pleading to take the kids away before she turned around and walked in the direction of the door, and I felt the ninja outside stopping as if waiting for her to come out. At this point, Naruto started understanding that something wasn't right and was about to say something, but Sasuke was faster. "Mom, where or why?" Sasuke tried to hold her hand and stop her, but I held him back. He angrily turned to me and was about to yell at me, but froze in fear when he saw my face and quickly lowered his head. Even I didn't know what kind of face I was making right now. What I know for sure is whenever someone tries to harm those close to me, I would snap and lose all reason, and that's what I was feeling right now as I saw the first person I cared for in this world walking to her death. Rage, insanity, heartlessness, nothing could describe how I was feeling as I saw that woman trying to sacrifice herself to give us a chance on escaping. I didn't know when, but the world in front of me turned crimson, and Sasuke, that was looking at my distorted face and crazed smile, saw a strange pattern in my eyes, something he never thought was possible only when he heard recently that his father had different eyes, something called Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke wasn't the only one shocked. No, Naruto, Kurama, Minato, and Kushina were all in deep shock at my transformation, an awakening of a demon. However, Sasuke's days didn't last long because he heard a voice that seemed to be coming from hell. "Take Naruto and leave. I said as I walked after Makoto that had already opened the door and jumped to face the people outside with her Sharingan activated. Sasuke almost didn't comply, but it was Naruto that stopped him this time. Father said to believe in them. Not to mention if we stay behind we will only burden them and might result in their deaths. Sasuke reluctantly agreed while feeling helpless at his weakness, and he remembered how he always complained when Bakurio trained them and said he never goes easy on them. But now he wished he trained even harder to be of some use. While thinking this, he quickly ran away with Naruto through the back of the house with tears in their eyes while saying with determination, "We need to grow stronger to protect those dear to us." And Naruto replied with a sad face, worried about the first person that gave him more than he could ever pay back in his whole life. Yes. Meanwhile, outside there were 5 people in total, 2 Jonin, and 3 Chunin, and one of those Jonin was actually a member of the Anbu, so it was impossible for Makoto to face them alone and her death was certain, that is if no one interferes. And never let your trust in something make you careless. The moment Makoto jumped out of the door, she quickly started the hand seals for the great fireball jutsu and she sent a huge fireball at the ninjas. However, they expected this famous Uchiha attack, so the fireball was intercepted by the second Jonin that wasn't an Anbu member, as he quickly did some hand seals before he put his hand on the ground casting a giant earth wall jutsu. This jutsu created a huge wall made of earth that blocked the fireball, keeping his comrades safe. However, Makoto never intended to take them out with her jutsu. Instead, it was only a distraction, as her true attack was in the form of a dozen shurikens she threw at them, which were connected to invisible chakra strings she uses to change their direction midair. However, as if knowing her fighting style, the Jonin Anbu quickly weaved some hand seals and cast a wind tornado jutsu, which created a violent tornado that caused huge turbulences in the air that made controlling her shurikens almost impossible even with her strong mastery. Meanwhile, the other Chunins didn't waste any time and quickly worked together to attack her, as one of them started casting a fire wave jutsu that has a huge range, clearly to force her to protect the house behind her, while the other 2 used wind jutsu to strengthen the fire. This combination attack created a huge sea of fire that threatened to swallow Makoto and the house containing the kids she dearly loved behind her. Makoto was panicking as she could clearly see the 2 Jonin were planning to attack her the moment she doesn't evade and tries to defend this huge fire attack, but she had no other choice as she thought, "It seems this is the end," and a tear fell from her eyes as her determination solidified and whispered, "Goodbye," and started casting a huge earth wall that would protect the house behind her. Meanwhile, the 2 Jonin quickly attacked her from 2 different locations as the Anbu shot a very sharp air blade at her, while the other one created a quagmire under here so she can't escape. But Makoto didn't react to these attacks and accepted her fate as she simply finished her jutsu and placed her hands on the ground that was now a quagmire, creating a huge earth wall that blocked the fire wave just enough so that it doesn't affect the house behind her while it continued devouring the surrounding houses. And then, she simply closed her eyes since she didn't have any time to block or evade these deadly attacks with both her hands and legs stuck inside the quagmire, and would take her time to retrieve them, which she doesn't have as her attackers didn't give her any. And even with their huge advantage, the normal Jonin was still casting another jutsu just in case to harden the quagmire and completely lock her inside, and he should be thankful he did, because the moment the air blade was about to cut her, a kid with crimson eyes and holding a short sword quickly flickered in its path while enveloped in a red chakra. What happened next was one of the weirdest scenes they ever experienced, because that kid simply looked at the attack that should have been impossible for him to block at his age, and his eyes slightly contracted as he simply used his short sword and slashed that air blade, making it dissipate. At the same time, thanks to his Mangekyo Sharingan's very strong Eye of Insight ability, he quickly understood what jutsu the other Jonin was trying to cast, so he quickly picked Makoto with his free hand and jumped away from the quagmire that quickly turned into hard stone. Makoto was shocked at the kid in front of her that just saved her life while enveloped in the chakra of a tailed beast that created 3 tails extending from his lower back, a transformation that usually only happens to those that have a tailed beast sealed in them, resulting in them called Jinchuriki. Yet this kid wasn't one, which confused her, but that confusion was quickly drowned at the sensation of being alive and felt at peace with the kid in front of her in a protecting posture, yet still having a distorted face that made him appear like a demon, but she only looked at it with her usual warm expression while muttering in her heart, "Thanks." Of course, right now I wasn't concerned with what she felt because I was still very angry while looking at the 5 ninja, showing shocked and wary faces while looking at me and saying, "How does this Uchiha kid have the power of the 9 tails? It seems they were really the ones behind the incident 5 years ago and can already use the chakra of the 9 tails. Be careful, he's more troublesome than that woman, and his weapon seems very hard and sharp since my jutsu didn't leave a scratch on it," said the Anbu ninja in wariness. Adding to their surprise, I took out another short sword from my inventory and looked at them coldly with my killing intent, casting an ominous atmosphere on the area surrounding me. My anger at seeing Makoto almost killed instinctively moved my body as I quickly flickered in front of one of the chunins while Makoto quickly got ready to offer her assistance when needed. I arrived in front of them at a very fast speed, and one of the jonin made an earth wall to block my way and hinder my vision, but my senses were far too strong for me to be hindered by a simple lack of vision, and quickly understood that they were all casting many jutsu for when I break through the wall recklessly, and so I used their plan against them. As my vision was obstructed, theirs was the same, so I simply kicked a big stone from one of the previously destroyed earth walls that were made at this new stone wall. Meanwhile, those 5 ninjas were preparing different ninjutsu to attack me when I break the wall, and the wall indeed broke, but as they were about to throw their prepared ninjutsu, one of the chunins, which was a sensor ninja, quickly tried to warn them, but it was too late. The 2 experienced jonin and sensor quickly jumped away when they felt something was wrong, but that wasn't the case for the last 2 chunins, as they found themselves swallowed by a huge fireball that came out of the ground under them, causing them to scream from the pain of being burned alive, and I followed behind it, attacking the 3 that avoided my sneak attack. They mistook my anger and craziness for carelessness, and they paid the price for it with 2 lives, and 3 more were coming as my bloodlust increased. Those 3 had ugly looks on their faces seeing what happened to their comrades, but they didn't have time to mourn them because a shower of shurikens was raining on them and they couldn't react in time to cast a jutsu, so they quickly took out kunais and started deflecting them quickly. But Makoto wasn't a jonin for nothing, and those shurikens quickly started ricocheting from one another midair, making their paths very unpredictable and dodging them almost impossible, and surprisingly the one that quickly fell victim to them was the jonin that was good with earth style, as he became a human porcupine. This is a fight without mercy. The reason for the chunin sensor surviving the rain of shurikens falling over him rather than the other jonin is simply because he was a sensor. Sensors are typically gifted with great senses and reaction speeds, that's why he can find a way to survive even after getting hit with some shurikens while the other jonin couldn't. As for the Anbu jonin, he survived because he was both skilled and talented. Even if his senses didn't reach a level similar to a sensor ninja, they were still strong, coupled with the huge experience he has from being an Anbu and going through countless deadly missions. Surviving this rain of unpredictable shurikens was hard but not impossible for him. Unfortunately for these 2, their opponent wasn't only Makoto, but another monster that was eyeing them as his prey. The moment I came out of the ground, my vision quickly focused on the 2 struggling ninjas, and I quickly threw my swords at both of them with all my strength while following, after leaving them no choice but to defend them or die. The chunin tried to deflect the sword the same way he was deflecting the shurikens, which was a wrong decision he made because of the pressure he was under, as the huge power behind my throw wasn't something he was expecting and quickly caused him to lose his balance and became a human porcupine, like his fellow ninja. The experienced Anbu wasn't any better, as he decided to send a kunai at Makoto in a desperate attempt, knowing he couldn't dodge from this situation, and his body quickly got impaled by many shurikens, but it simply disappeared in a puff of smoke. Meanwhile, Makoto, that was focused on controlling her shurikens, didn't expect the kunai the man sent in a desperate attempt to take her down with him to transform into him. Damn it, I was careless. He used the shuriken transformation jutsu and transformed into a kunai to trick my Sharingan, Makoto thought as she looked at the man before her that was about to slit her throat. However, I wasn't about to allow for this to happen, because the moment that man threw the kunai I noticed something. The expression of pain when he got impaled seemed fake, so thanks to my quick reaction speed I quickly understood what's happening, so I directly poured chakra in my body, pushing it to its breaking point. I pounced at the kunai with enough force, creating a sonic boom and leaving behind me a shattered ground where I was standing. The man just transformed back to normal and tried to kill the woman before him before he felt a huge force hitting him in the head, and that was the last thing he felt as his head exploded like a watermelon and his body traveled a long way, flipping and turning many times on the ground while destroying many obstacles on its way before finally stopping. Makoto looked in shock as a rain of blood and gore rained down on her and the kid that quickly removed the red chakra surrounding him and started regaining his normal reasoning back. Not long after, he quickly felt a terrible pain from using all that chakra and pushing his 6-year-old body beyond its limits, and the only thing currently holding him together is the healing properties from Kurama's chakra along with his strong vitality and physique attributes. One increased his recovery speed and the other the toughness of his body and how much stress it could endure. He also consumed a huge amount of stamina in this short fight, leaving him exhausted, and he almost fell to the ground, but the woman in front of him quickly regained her composure from the unbelievable series of events of being near death twice and hugged the bloody kid, not letting him fall while gently whispering with tears of happiness falling from her eyes, "Thank you." Feeling the warmth from this soft embrace along with the terrible pain coursing through my body, I simply thought in my head, it was worth it, before I relaxed a little while keeping some of my attention on the surrounding just in case. That team definitely wasn't normal. They had such good teamwork and synergy between them which was impossible to build out of nowhere, seeing that one of their members was an Anbu. I will ask Makoto about them later. These two idiots, why are they coming back? I thought, as I heard Naruto and Sasuke arguing about going back. After all, they were simply kids. Whatever determination they could have made to leave would never hold, especially for Sasuke knowing that he's leaving his mother to face her death along with his best friend. So he finally decided to go back and fight to the death with them even if he provides little to no help. A foolish decision. Naruto kept trying to stop him to no avail, so, in the end, he decided to tag along with him. He wasn't going to let Sasuke go back alone. Well, let's make the best out of this situation, I thought, as I whispered something to Makoto and she reluctantly agreed when I insisted. When Naruto and Sasuke reached the fight location, their hearts sank. As to their horror, they saw 2 burned corpses which they related to the screams they heard before coming here, and 2 people stabbed to death with so many shurikens to the point their bodies weren't recognizable anymore, causing them to almost throw up and would be a cause for many of their nightmares in the future. Add to that Makoto covered in blood while laying in a pool of blood and gore with their friend Bakurio laying motionless in her embrace, causing them to rush at her while Sasuke asked in hope of an optimistic answer, "Mother, how are you?" and Bakurio. Makoto with a sad face said, "I am fine, Bakurio saved my life," and didn't say anything about Bakurio, causing both Sasuke and Naruto to feel pain in their hearts as if they were getting squeezed by something. What about Bakurio?" asked Naruto with a worried look, and Makoto simply shook her head and hugged me closer to her body while inside she felt guilty at lying to these kids which now had blanks look on their faces. "You are joking, right?" said Sasuke, seeming to be talking more to himself than to his mother, while Naruto simply kept staring blankly, unresponsive to his parents' concerns that he heard in his head. "I am useless, I couldn't even protect my friend," they both thought. Why? Tears of regret and sadness quickly started flowing down their faces. If only I helped them, maybe we could have made a change. If only I was stronger, they wouldn't reject my help. Sasuke was saying inside his head, and Naruto was having a similar monologue with himself. I left my friend behind. If only I fought along with him to the end. If only I could control Kurama's chakra like him, this wouldn't have happened. These thoughts filled their minds as a darkness they never felt before started rising inside their hearts, seeing how cruel the world is, and before long Sasuke's neck started heating up and that heat quickly rushed to his eyes which turned crimson in the process, but he didn't notice this change as he simply hugged the corpse of his friend, and Naruto did the same. Hopefully, you will listen properly next time and won't return to throw your life away pointlessly in the case we lose, I thought as I felt the 2 kids hugging me, and from the corner of my eye saw the change in Sasuke's eyes. Seeing that my purpose of awakening Sasuke's Sharingan and teaching them this valuable lesson was achieved, I finally stopped this charade, saying, "You 2 crybabies need more training." Naruto and Sasuke, why? They both yelped in surprise and jumped away from me with their eyes wide in shock and still wet with tears as if they saw a ghost in front of them, and quickly hid behind Makoto. "TCH, what are you overreacting for?" I said in an annoyed tone as I left Makoto's embrace, but still felt weak as I didn't recover that much yet, so I had to hold on to her to not fall down. Mom, what's happening?" asked Sasuke with his eyes now back to normal to his mother that was looking at him with an apologetic smile. Makoto heaved a sigh before she said, I am sorry Sasuke, Naruto-kun, Bakurio actually pretended to be dead on purpose to help you awaken your Sharingan, and left something unsaid, and help you understand the pain that comes with weakness in this world. They both finally realized that their friend was still alive, but before they could rejoice they felt anger at being tricked in such a way and felt their emotions were being toyed with. I looked at their angry faces and felt like I deserved a harsh beating for letting two kids experience this traumatizing pain, but I felt it was really necessary. Indeed, I am sorry, but I wanted you to be ready for the worrying future that is about to come. And I believe you two can help change it, for the better. Makoto didn't know what I meant by worrying future, but she too wasn't feeling optimistic after seeing the recent events that occurred one after the other, with the village having no time to rest to lick its wounds properly. I hate you, said Naruto while he hugged Makoto and didn't want to look at me as he kept remembering this horrifying scene, and will always remember it in the future, and it will be his biggest motivation and drive to grow stronger, and it was the same for Sasuke. The only difference is that he kept glaring at me and I felt like he wanted to beat me up but hesitated when he saw that I was barely standing on shaky legs with the support of his mother. Thankfully, I know you two are very strong mentally even from a young age, otherwise I wouldn't scar your childhood like this, but I will try my best to make it up for both of you, I thought as I warmly looked at these two kids that reminded me of something. Something that almost filled the void in my heart before I lost it. I gently patted their heads before I said to Makoto, I can sense many fights currently happening inside Konoha and chaos is everywhere, so I will leave my doubts about who those five are or any questions you have for later. We need to deliver support to the other Uchiha as I can feel many of them struggling. Makoto nodded at me, knowing that the situation wasn't yet optimal to waste time, even though she was dying to ask about my Mangekyo Sharingan. Have you recovered enough? Asked Makoto worriedly. Yes, don't worry. I have strong vitality, and with the help of Kurama's chakra that has natural healing properties, I will quickly make a full recovery, I said while inside I thought. I should really learn medical ninjutsu to not waste time in such situations in the future. Hopefully, we will find Tsunade soon, with Jiraiya and Mukai searching for her at the same time. Makoto nodded at me before she hid her concerns and was about to ask something. Where's the Clo? Boom! A huge explosion sounded near the entrance of the Uchiha compound, and she quickly got her answer as we both made a shadow clone and let them accompany the kids while we both went to the location where the sound was generated from. When we reached there, we saw one of the Uchiha Jonin Inabi heavily wounded while fighting a special Jonin and two Chunin and having to protect two old civilian Uchiha couple behind him. These two were quite famous as they owned a very famous senbei shop inside the village which Sasuke loves to visit with Itachi. They are Toyaki Uchiha and his wife Uruchi Uchiha. Inabi and the Uchiha couple lying unconscious on the ground had some burn marks on their bodies and clothes, so both Makoto and I guessed that the previous explosion we heard was because one of those three used a very strong explosion jutsu or seal in their attack. And indeed, that special Jonin was special because of his high mastery of sealing jutsu, allowing him to create many variations of the explosion tags. One of them, similar to Minato's ability, is to create an explosive seal with his chakra when he touches a target, which he then can make explode at any time he wants, but he can only use it on objects that don't contain chakra since it isn't as hard to remove as Minato's. And what he did was he fought Inabi with the two Chunins while creating explosive traps in many places around them. Of course, Inabi was able to avoid most of them, but protecting people while fighting will 9 out of 10 times end badly for you and cause you to mess up, and that's what happened as the two behind him got attacked and they ran away in a panic to dodge the attack. Unfortunately, they ran away to the location of a trap that almost blew them into smithereens, but Inabi saved them in the nick of time but ended up getting badly injured from the explosion, while those two got knocked out as they didn't escape it completely unscathed. After that, the situation quickly went downhill for the injured Inabi that loved his clan dearly and would risk his life for its people, and started planning a desperate attack to take those three with him, but that's when help arrived as a rain of shurikens with impossible angles forced those three to get back as two people landed beside him, a kid and a woman. He recognized both as the wife of his boss and the new young genius of their clan, but they were both bloody, seeming to have come from a bloody battle too, but he didn't say anything right now and simply nodded at them in gratitude. I stretched my hand and patted Inabi on the back and sent him some of Kurama's chakra to help him recover quickly, as those three were distracted by Makoto before I started weaving hand seals to cast a great fireball jutsu to pressure those three even more. As I dodged out of the way, I took out something I rarely used. 3 lethal kunais I got way back. I threw them at those 3 ninjas without attaching any chakra strings to them and only imbuing them with chakra appearing to increase their sharpness. Being a kid, those 3 didn't take my attack seriously, so they simply dodged, but that's when my slithering throwing jutsu took effect, as the chakra imbued on those kunai wasn't simply for sharpening, but it caused the direction of those kunai to change at the last instant when they were about to pass those 3, not allowing them any time to dodge, and they all got lacerated by them. Let's see how effective this is, as I thought as I looked at the grunting ninjas wickedly. Thank you for listening guys, see you in the next part.